I was really riding the line between life and death for a while. I'm rising up, but I'm no longer in my body. I can't even see my body anymore. And I realize I don't have a body. And I could see billions and billions and billions of points of light. It was one of those moments where the vibrational frequency from being up there and floating around to hitting the physical body again was so palpable and so incredible.
Hello, kia ora, and welcome along to another episode of the Let's Talk Near Death podcast, where we talk about all things life, death, and experiences in between. Today, I'm chatting with Alysa Rushton, who is a near-death experiencer and who is all about stepping into our true identity and developing strong and divine connections. She's been on quite a wellness journey, not only losing 100 pounds, she also lost a walker. She shares some of her learning moments from her near-death experience, and she has a strong focus on energy and frequency and aligning our lives to tune into the best frequency of us. Today, she does some speaking, and she's also got different programs, including her Raise Your Vibrational Spiritual Toolkit. She talks about expanding your energy, 5D energy, reality by divine design. She's got loads of amazing programs to help us to upgrade where we are right now and to get into living this life the most that we can. So, Alysa, welcome along to the Let's Talk Near Death podcast. I'm pretty excited by our conversation that's coming up today because we're talking about wellness, which is another thing that I'm very passionate about. Something which I love to discuss is wellness alongside near-death experiences and about how we can get the most out of this life. Where do we begin with your story?
Oh, Kirsty, thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited. I'm actually a big fan of the show. So I too love hearing about near-death experiences because I have had one. So it's always so cool to hear more. And I'm so excited to be here with you and your listeners today.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And like I said, we tap into a personal interest of mine. We've got things in common. Love the conversation. So where do we start with your story, Alysa? Where do we begin?
Yeah, with the near-death experience. So I was working in corporate America and I was, making my way up the corporate ladder. And ultimately I started to get really, really sick. I was not feeding my body well. I was drinking and smoking. I was living out of, the vending machines at the corporate offices. And it just started to really go sideways on me. And ultimately, I started getting sicker and sicker, and I visited more and more doctors, had more and more diagnoses of autoimmune diseases, MS, rheumatoid arthritis, Lyme disease, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. They started stacking up. The colon stuff, right? All of it started just one on top of the other, celiac, all of it. And so I started medicating at each and every diagnosis. I would be prescribed more and more medications, right? And ultimately, I got hooked up with this doctor who said, listen, we need to kill all the bugs that are inside you. You've got bacteria, you've got viruses, we just need to kill it all. So I said, yay, let's do it, because I still wanted to climb the corporate ladder. I still wanted to have that job. So fast forward, I get a PICC line installed, which is where they put a line going, plastic tube going from your arm into your heart so they can just deliver medication straight into, the chambers. And I was on this cocktail of about 28 different medications, including a lot of end-of-life pain management because I was in so much pain. And I was really riding the line between life and death for a while. It was, at the time I was creeping up the scale to 240 pounds. I had to wear diapers. I couldn't really get around much. My days were just spent sort of in bed or in the infusion chair at the hospital. And so one night, though, I had had a little too much extra medication that particular night. And my husband, I was married at the time, found me. He woke up for some weird reason. He had heard a noise and he woke up. And I was in the bathroom on the toilet. And by the way, if you're going to die, bathroom's the place to do it. I would say.
Oh, wow.
Do in the bathroom. So I was on the potty and we had a side wall that was right next to the potty. And I had, passed, he thought I had just passed out. But then he looked at me and my lips were blue, my nails were blue, and I wasn't breathing. And he thought, oh God, this is the moment that he had felt coming for a while, because everyone sort of knew I was on the edge of really not doing well. Mm-hmm. So meanwhile, while I'm dead on the toilet and he's trying to get his wits about him, I am floating around the cosmos. I didn't have that moment, Kirsty, that many near-deathers talk about where they hover above their body. I think because I was so medicated, I just popped up to a level that was beyond that. So I arrived at the moment where I'm rising up, but I'm no longer in my body. I can't even see my body anymore. And I realize I don't have a body. And I felt so amazing. It felt so expanded. If you can imagine the tightest girdle or the tightest piece of clothing you've ever had on, and someone takes it off, and I just felt so expanded and amazing. And I felt wrapped in bliss and love. And I remember heading up, it's an upward trajectory for sure. And going into this, what I call God consciousness, and just being so at one and at peace with everything. Now, you got to understand too, I didn't have anybody who had died in my life. I didn't have any loved ones on the other side. So I wasn't greeted by the typical friends and family and all of that show that you sometimes see. And what I personally feel like is that the consciousness that you're holding when you die is what you tend to experience when you leave the body. It's the universe's way of making you feel really safe. So for example, if you believe in heaven and the pearly gates, that's oftentimes what you'll first experience before you really move more into the death experience. So for me, I moved up into this beautiful, loving presence. And the best way I can describe this is, if you've ever seen those security cameras, somebody's watching hundreds of security cameras all at once, maybe on a display. It was like that, only I was the consciousness, and I could see billions and billions and billions of points of light that were like bubbles of like a security camera image coming through. So I could see what was in the bubble. And at the time I could take my consciousness and stretch into as many of them as I wanted. So I'm talking, I could go down into Earth. I could go into other galaxies. I could go down into people, places, things, plants, animals, rocks. I could stretch my consciousness out in multiple directions and feel and sense that experience. So I'm soaking it all in. I'm also at the same time getting downloads about how the universe is built, how we go from light to sound to then form in sacred geometry, and then how it comes down. So I'm like getting downloaded with all of this information, along with being able to look at universes far beyond our own, and things that I don't even have, American words to describe. So I was doing that for a while, and it was such a stretchy, expansive feeling. In fact, I often say it's the most physical experience I've ever had without a body. I just, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I did that for a while, and I was up there floating and, doing and stretching my consciousness and learning and seeing. And then something grabbed my attention, and it was a ball that looked a lot like Earth. And I thought, I'm going to go down and just really fully engage in that. So my consciousness then sort of unplugged from this higher space that I was in, and I went down into earth, allegedly. And I looked around and everything was the same, except the sky was this olive drabby color, this olive green kind of drab looking, and everything had sort of a hue of olive drab over it. And I thought, I'm just going to go and say hi to somebody I know. And I realized I didn't have a body. I realized that, okay, I know I don't have a body, but I want to go see somebody that I know. So I went and just the minute I thought about this person was my ex-boyfriend, and I popped up at his condo and I'm watching him and he's drinking a beer, and I felt very safe and comforted. And then I went and looked and sat with a bunch of other people, all with addictions. Because at the time I died, I had a lot of addictions, right? I was a smoker, I was a drinker, I was totally on all this end of life pain management. So I didn't find out years later what that was, and I can talk more about that. But then at one point, I felt very comforted and very like a healing wash was coming over me. Again, it was weird because I was consciousness, but I didn't have a body. I felt like it was weird that I couldn't talk to anybody, but it felt very healing. And this group energy came to me and they said, hey, you're welcome to stay here as long as you want. It'll be very healing for you, but you're not going to be able to come back into the Alysa body. So do you want to come back? And if you do, you must know it's going to be some of the hardest work that you've ever done, but it'll be so worth it. And the minute I thought, yes, it was like someone took me off a 1,000-story building and dropped me and slammed me down into my body. And I woke up and I was, in the bathroom. They had resuscitated me. I was like, it was one of those moments where the vibrational frequency from being up there and floating around to hitting the physical body again was so palpable and so incredible. And then I woke up in the bathroom and, now there's 20 EMTs in my bathroom, and I'm like, I was slurring. I couldn't even speak well. And I look over at my husband. I look down at him and I say, honey, what are these people doing here? He said, they're here for you, baby. So I didn't really even understand that in that moment, I was still coming back into my body, and they're asking me now questions because I'm talking, what's your name? What's your address? And I remember when they asked me, because they asked me what's my address first. And I remember, Kirsty, when they said, what's your name? I thought, oh, this is really serious. And I could see everybody in the room. And I thought, I should really know my name, but I don't.
Wow.
So that was it. That's the full Monty of my experience. And so, yeah.
Oh, man. Thank you so much for sharing. It sounds like the way you describe it, you've got quite a great way of sharing your story. You're talking about how you're stretching all these lights, and you can stretch and play with your consciousness, and you can go anywhere you want to go in this realm, up in different realms. And it just sounds absolutely amazing.
Honestly, it was one of the most loving, blissful experiences. I felt one with God consciousness or divine consciousness or whatever word one wants to use for it. But I felt totally at one. I actually, a couple things I believe now that I have died is I highly recommend death. I mean, I'm not saying don't do it before your time, okay? It's a birthing. You're actually not dying at all. You're being birthed. You're being birthed into this new expanded consciousness where then I think you get to go and pick where you want to go and what you want to do next. I do believe that that's what happens, but I think that it's such an expansive experience. It's so amazing. There's really nothing to fear other than, the fear of it itself. But I also believe now that I have died, I actually don't think you can die before it's your time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
right? I don't think you can die before it's your time. And I think it sometimes, even if it is your time, I've seen people stretch their time, where they're not quite ready or they've got unfinished business and they come back. So I feel like, and one of the things I was shown up there is you have multiple exit points where your soul has said, okay, I could choose to go out at this time. But because you're a conscious being, you also get a choice. Even after you've crossed over, even after it's, for me, I was so far gone, they had to give me 2 doses of Narcan, which is the drug that blocks all the overdose receptors. I mean, this is what Michael Jackson, one of the drugs is what Michael Jackson died of, right? This is something that really can kill people fast and all the way dead. What's that? The Princess Bride. Have you ever seen the movie The Princess Bride?
As You Wish.
As You Wish.
I
Yes.
love that movie.
He's only mostly dead. Mostly dead. So I was only mostly dead, but you do get the choice oftentimes, and we get to pick. Our soul gets these multiple exit points. So I don't know. I'm pretty convinced that you don't die before it's your time. It's the most loving, expansive experience that you'll ever have, and there's really not anything to fear about it.
Oh, wow. I get so excited hearing that, because that's one of my big questions that I have is, can we die before our time? Because life seems so fragile, like what you're talking about seems so fragile, but on the other hand, so sturdy. You went through all of that and you still didn't die. And you hear of people that go through major, major traumatic accidents or experiences, and they turn around, they go, it's a miracle you're still alive. And I go, well, if it's not our time, can we actually die when it's not our time? And then you hear of other ones where you're like, wow, that just happened so quickly, or it seemed too easy for that person to leave. And so how much choice do we have? I always question this. How much choice do we actually have? And it was really interesting in our last season talking more about deathbed experiences. So we didn't talk so much about near-death experiences. It was talking about, can we hold on at the end of life? Can we extend our life timeline? And it may have been Dr. Peter Fennick, I'm not quite sure. It was a little while ago that we recorded, talking about, well, actually, I'm set to die on a Wednesday, but Friday suits me much better, because then maybe I could spend more time with the family. Or can we just change that to be on a Friday instead of a Wednesday? And thinking about these things, just, we're so limited by what we can understand here. And that's one of the themes that I'm really feeling through your story, Alysa, is just there's so much depth to it. And here we are in our human bodies, and we're so limited. And you talked about the corset and being squished in. And then when you take that off, it's like we are so much bigger than we are within our bodies. And, we have such limited understanding. But I guess my question for you, Alysa, is, you've talked about exit points. Do you think that the way you were living your life, because you were talking about how you had addictions, how you were feeding it certain things, did that create the exit point? Or do you think that exit point was always going to be there?
Oh, I love this question so much. So, because I'd love to talk about entry points too, but the exit point,
Oh, yeah.
I had a palm reading done when I was in my 20s, and this person took my palm and they said, you have the possibility of dying quite young in your 30s. And I had always felt that. I had felt that I would never live past being 30. And I, in fact, died when I was 30.
Oh, wow.
So I personally think that, yes, we script our parents, we pick our parents, we choose our birth date, our time. It's our star map, right, of us. And we get to script it out to a certain level. Like, I want to have these experiences, and these parents are the ones that I know are going to teach me the lessons that I need to learn here on planet learning. And so I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to give myself multiple options of out points. So back to your question. Yes, I think that my lifestyle was very much leading me down the path of choosing that checkout point, and my soul on the other side, and the higher powers that be gave me the opportunity to say, you don't have to do this. You can come back and have this really long life in front of you of making change and being an inspiration for people to regather themselves and get their health back and raise their frequency and their vibration. So yeah, I think I think that it's pre-scripted, but I think we get some choice to it.
Yeah. Have you had any other experiences in your life where you've thought, maybe that was an exit point, but I didn't take it? Because we don't consciously take them, do we?
No, I totally have had that. In fact, I had in my teens, I was kind of a wild child in my teens, which led to all of this trauma that I never healed. And that's why I think I got so sick. But at 15, I remember wanting to kill myself. And in fact, I walked into the drugstore at almost 10 o'clock at night, and I bought 2 packs of sleeping pills. And I was planning to go and take these sleeping pills and wash it down with a bottle of Dad's bourbon, And I remember walking out of the store. Now, mind you, it's 10 o'clock at night. There's nobody there. And I walk out of the store, and there's this very handsome man, probably in his 20s, long blonde hair. And he says to me, "What's in the bag?" Now, there was no one that I remembered being in the store. And I said, "Nothing." And he said, "What's in the bag? I think you need to throw that bag away." And I said, "No, I'm good. Thanks." And he looked me into my soul. And at the time, he used language that he knew would get to me. And he said, "If you believe in Jesus at all, you need to throw that bag away. I cannot do it for you, but you have to throw it away. It's not the time." And it shook me to my core. I'm 15. I'm having this mystical experience. I'm about to take my life tonight. And here's this very handsome, probable angel guy telling me I've got to throw this bag away, but he can't do it for me. So I throw it away. We're in front of, I don't know if you guys have this in New Zealand. I can't believe it's not yogurt. We're in front of this store called I Can't Believe It's Not Yogurt. And so I throw it away, and it's completely dark. And he says, "Come with me." And so we walk in back of the shopping mall there, and he, now I'm in an alley, and I'm thinking, I don't know if this is a good idea for me to be in an alley. And he pushes my shoulders up against this brick wall, and he starts speaking in what I can only call light language, and does this whole activation or something. And I closed my eyes. And when he got done, I opened my eyes, and he was not there. And so I don't know if he hustled out of there quite quickly or what. But to your question, I think we have these multiple points. And sometimes if it's not our time, you've heard it with people in car accidents and moms lifting the car, there's angels that come forward in the form of earth people, earthly beings. And they just, for whatever reason, they say all the right things, they do all the right actions, and you don't end up dying that day. So I think this earth experience is so cosmic and so mystical, that we as humans have been programmed to think that it's not. We've been programmed to think, you just come in, you get a job, you pick a vocation, you go to college, you try to accumulate all the things and get the money. But what I have realized is you don't get to take anything with you except your soul lessons. That's all you get to take.
Absolutely. And again, it's about this understanding that is so much bigger than us, isn't it? I find your story with, you call him the angel guy with the light language. I find that amazing, because I was thinking, but there could have been anything in your little bag. You're in a store that sells so many things which potentially not life-threatening. And just the timing and the prompting, and yeah, it's amazing. When you said that he took you to the alley and then he disappeared, I went, oh, okay, maybe there's something more in this. But thinking, the amount of times that I felt I need to go and talk to somebody, or I need to give somebody something, we've got to be connected to these promptings, and we can feel like they're silly or whatever. It's so important to find that connection and that that piece that links everything together. So yeah, internal chatter, internal messages, internal voice. I'm not talking like we're hearing voices. I'm talking about our inner self, our guidance, our divine connection, things like that. You said that he said, if you believe in Jesus, you'll throw the bag away today. Mm-hmm. Did you believe in Jesus? Did you have any aspect of faith or anything before your experience and then also after?
Yeah, so I had been raised in the Christian church. And so we went to church every Sunday and every Wednesday, whether we needed it or not. We went, you know. And we had been on a lot of mission trips. And I remember being in Thailand. And that's where I lost my faith in Christianity, because here I am in Thailand with these amazing people, salt of the earth, gorgeous individuals. And I asked my pastor, who we were there with, I said, so do you mean to tell me that these people who don't believe in Jesus and have never seen the Bible are going to hell, and through all time and eternity, they're always going to hell? And he said, yes. And I'm 12, and I thought, well, this is hooey. I don't want to believe in anything like that. That's not the God that I feel like I have a connection with. So I sort of at 12 stopped believing in religion. I stopped going to church after that. I refused to go. I just was not a yes for participating in a system where these amazing, incredible people would be punished for being amazing, incredible people that just didn't happen to believe like I did. I called BS on that. So I thought that I didn't, but I think he knew that was the one word, because I still had this personal relationship with an energy of love. And I think he knew that if he said, if you believe in Jesus, it'll get to me enough, because I had enough closeness to it that I would be like, oh God, I got to throw this away.
Yeah. And what about after that time, after your experience, you've experienced being out of your body, feeling so much bigger?
So when I actually died, because I hadn't been being spiritual at all. I hadn't been practicing anything except being a very sick human being. And after coming back, I can remember Kirsty waking up in the hospital in the ER, strapped down to a gurney. Now you got to remember, I'm somebody who used to need a walker to get around, but I'm in the hospital strapped to the gurney, and my arms and legs are flailing. I'm kicking. My husband's looking at me like, God, I didn't know you could do that. And I'm in full, total withdrawal from all of these drugs. And I realized in that moment that the medicine that I thought was healing me was killing me. And I realized in that moment that I was going to have to piece my life together in a different way. It was my big wake up moment. It was my big aha, this is killing me. What I'm doing is killing me, and I have to stop. And what I realized in that moment, and then the moments to follow the next few days, is my life is broken. I have a broken life, and that I've never dealt with any of my traumas and any of my problems. And I've always just tried to stuff it down and medicate it and drink it away or smoke it away or work it away, achieve it away. And I realized that none of that was working. And so that then, I had just turned 30, started the process of me completely unpacking my life and trying to heal myself, because I knew that the way I was trying to go about healing myself was actually going to put me in the grave. And it turns out that the doctor that I was working with actually had lost 3 patients that same year to medical overdoses. Oh, so wow. I feel very lucky to still be here.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. So what did that look like? How do you start to change the way that you're dealing with what you're dealing with? How did you know what to do?
Well, the cool part was I didn't know what to do, but up there I had a lot of downloads. So one of the first things I can remember is the very next day, I went back to the hospital and they were infusing. I was doing infusions again. And so I sat in this chair and I heard a man's voice. And I didn't know till years later who this man was. His name's Emile Couillet. and he's an author back from the 1920s. And the only reason why I know it is his voice is because I've heard him give a lecture. But I heard this voice on repeat, and the voice said, "I'm getting better and better every day in every way." And it just 1,000 times went through my head or more. And so I thought, okay, I need to take control of this. So I started researching some of the downloads I got on the other side, which were about using sound and frequency to heal our bodies, and not maybe doing some of the Western medicine stuff that we do, but just really tapping into these sound frequencies. So I was on the internet Googling, what can I do to shift myself? And you got to remember, I couldn't really walk well. So at the time, I would lay in bed and just listen to these sound frequencies and these meditations. And I would imagine myself being able to get up and walk and run. And I would imagine my body being thin again and fit. And it wasn't too long after that, I started to go through that process of visioning and using frequency, that I started to feel compelled to get out for little mini walks with my walker. And I had a neighbor who would walk to the edge of my driveway with me, and then we'd walk back. And I did that for a week. And then I'd add a house. So then I'd, walk to the driveway and add another house. And I lived in the country, so it was farther than just living in the city. But I built up and built up over time. And I hired health coaches. And I remember meeting with this health coach, Shelley, who had this mystical twinkle in her eye and this sparkle and this glowing skin. And she was older than me, probably by about 10 or 15 years. And I thought, I want what she has. And I said, show me how to get what you have. And she showed me a picture of what she used to look like before she changed her diet and her mindset and her, physical doings that she did every day. And I thought, wow, she's really a totally different person. So it gave me that motivation to realize what I put in my mouth and what I put in my mind and what I feel in my body actually matters. So I walked away from this experience thinking it really does matter. The thoughts we think, the foods we eat, and the feelings we feel make such a huge difference in our life experience. And I went and set about to change all of that for myself. And it really took me from 2005 is when I died, till about 2010, I was really a different person. And then by 2012, you would not have recognized the old me in the new me. I was really the new me.
And so what I think we need to do is actually respect the amount of time that's involved in that. This wasn't something that you came back with instant healing, or it wasn't just something that was handed to you on a plate. And if anybody has ever had to tackle overcoming an addiction or a habitual behavior, we're talking today. And, I really want to acknowledge that there was work and there was stuff that would have had to have gone in behind the scenes, that it didn't just come easily. It didn't just happen overnight. So aware of what you've been through, I suppose.
And it was, I love that you said it didn't happen overnight, because I think true healing takes some time for you, the person, to reformulate yourself. I ended up going to nutrition school, and I learned that it takes 7 years to replace most of the cells in your body. So, while we might have these miraculous healings, much of the time it does take time to turn over the cells in the body and to turn over our thoughts and feelings, and to, like you said, respect the process. And I think that because it took time, it actually led to behaviors for me that stuck. You don't see me being different any time. I mean, I don't drink and I don't smoke and I eat a very certain way, but that doesn't change when I go on vacation. That doesn't change when there's a hard moment. That doesn't change when there's family in town. I'm always my consistent self-care practice, healthcare practice, foods, nourishing foods practice. I always am consistent because I took the time to really seal it within myself.
Exactly. And I like how personalized our health can be. It's what's right for one person isn't necessarily right for others. So when we say this works, it may work for everyone, it may not. And we're on a personal journey. And that's where, for me, I need to tap into what is the message for me. You know, some people are okay to drink, some people aren't. We've got some people who go through spiritual experiences and then are devout in the way that they live their lifestyle. And others who go through spiritual experiences and come back and go, man, it's so free. We can do anything. And just really, I guess, I'm aware of how unique our health is, how individual our health is, but how we need to respect our bodies as well. And I like what you're talking about. It wasn't about I needed to lose weight and I needed to look better, to have more acceptance and feel better about myself. It was about I needed to do this to have a better quality of life. I needed to look after my health so that I could do what I needed to do and not be on the brink of death again, or have these limiting things in my life that meant that I couldn't truly be who I needed to be. So it's so unique, isn't it?
It is, and something that you said about that unique journey, when I was up there exploring all the different consciousnesses, one of the things that I very much felt on the other side was that there's no wrong path. What we see down here is somebody maybe who we think their life's off in a ditch, or we think, all of these things about them. There is no wrong path. And I feel like you don't get just one go, you get multiple goes at being human or not being human, or, you're expanding your consciousness in some way. And so to think, when we look at somebody else and think, boy, they're really getting it wrong, is a tough line, because everybody's on such a different learning curriculum. And they're playing different roles in that learning curriculum. Some people are down here specifically just being teachers for others. And some people are really, they're taking the master's program and the PhD at the same time. And other people are still in second grade. And so to judge that, we would never look, you have a child, you would never look at your child in second grade and think, God, I cannot believe you're so dumb. You're not in college yet. We would never look at a 7-year-old and be like, I cannot believe you're not taking advanced calculus. Gosh, you're never going to make it.
Exactly, because they're not at that stage. They've got to go through the learning. You can't expect a 2-year-old to be at university. You can't. And so often we beat ourselves up because we're not where we think we should be, or there's pressure to always be more, I suppose.
Yes.
And I fall into this, definitely. I'm learning a lot about just being and understanding that where we are is okay, but it is a journey, it is a process. And that's where also, when we were talking about life and being near end of life, can we choose our moment to die? I think we need to respect the process of going through this journey and this lifetime and getting the full learning experience, I suppose. So there's so many elements. It's totally unique. I don't think there's right and wrongs. I don't know. I'd love to hear what listeners think about that. Can we do this wrong? You talked about, at one stage, you're up and you're in this beautiful space, and they said you can go back to Alyssa's body, and it's going to be one of the hardest experiences ever. There's going to be a lot you go through. I'm paraphrasing your words here. We talked about this quite some time back. There's going to be a lot that you go through in Alyssa's body, and then you did come back. What made you come back, and did you really feel like you had that choice?
Yeah, it was as soon as I felt a yes, that's when I came back. But I didn't have a long moment to say yes. It was sort of it felt like a split decision of the moment I said yes. There was no other choosing of him hawing around, or, oh, maybe I will, or maybe I won't. There was none of that. It was the minute I felt and said yes, I got slammed back into the body. So it wasn't a long moment up there. It was just, do you want to do this or don't you? And I felt, yes, I do. And I've always been one to like a challenge. So why not?
So here we are. Yeah, exactly. And I guess it has been quite a challenge. Like we said before, it didn't happen overnight. There were learning processes to go through, things to deal with. Yeah.
And recovering the body. I mean, when you have a body that's 240 pounds and in ill health in every part of the body, there's a lot to recover. But I think it's so cool in the sense that it's a great testament to you can heal if you want to. If you really want to, when you give your body what it needs, the body is actually designed to heal. You know, the body wants to heal. It just needs to be given enough of the things that it needs to do it in order to heal, but it will. It wants to.
Mm. Do you think there's a case where maybe it doesn't want to, where it's part of a life plan or?
Well, I would personally argue now here's where my work comes in with people. So after I've done this for myself, I've worked with thousands of people to transform their health and their lives. So what I feel very strongly is that we have the physical body, but we have the emotional body. We have the mental body and we have the spiritual body. And they're sort of overlaid like those little, what are those Russian dolls?
Yeah, the Russian dolls.
Stackables, right? And so the body, I think, is sort of like a dumb computer. It just is going to do what you tell it. And so if the emotional body, the mental body, or the spiritual body are not on board, the physical body cannot heal. And so that's the work that I do with people is I then say, okay, if you got an issue in the body or your outside world, like your relationships are falling apart or your business or your life or something, we want to take a look at where in the emotional, mental, spiritual, or physical body is that lock happening, and then we want to unlock it so that if the body wants to heal, it can, right? And sometimes when I say if the body wants to heal, it's a piece. There might be a part of you that's playing out a story of the body doesn't want to heal. But I truly believe that we are in what I saw up there is there's infinite possibilities, there's infinite potentials, there's infinite things that can come forward. And while I think certain things are scripted, I think we have a lot more choice and ability to co-create what we want down here. And so that requires us taking total responsibility, though, for what's happening. And that can be really tough for people, right? That can be really tough. It was really tough for me. So it's one of those moments where you kind of have to dig in deep and say, do I really want to change this? And am I willing to go through the things and heal the things that are stopping me from healing?
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I really like that. That makes a lot of sense to me. And even if it is scripted and we have chosen this, part of me goes, but let's have the better version of that experience as we can. It's kind of like as we get older, I work with a lot of older people. Some of them are really fit and mobile and others not so much. And I talk about it and I go, oh, I don't need to live long. I don't need to live for years and years and years. But then if you have the quality of life and you have your mobility and your health, then why not? But also if you're going to have illness or there's going to be something that comes up, why can't we have the better version of that? And I think that comes back to aligning ourselves with source, God, call it what you like, connecting into that divine healing and trying to have the higher vibration, the higher frequency is what we've been talking about of that particular experience. So yeah, you get me thinking on about a lot of things in this conversation. Yeah, it's been really interesting. I'm here now. I'm looking at you. You look gorgeous. You look vibrant. You're glowing. You look healthy. If I didn't know your story, I think, wow, Alyssa's really, she's really healthy and doing everything right. And what is life like for you now? Do you still have any health issues? Do you still have things that you come up against?
I'm so glad you asked this. Yeah, I have a couple things that haven't fully 100% healed that I have to be mindful of. So, for example, if I eat a lot of sugar, I'll get a lot of joint pain. So, therefore, I don't eat a lot of sugar. If I eat a lot of chocolate or something like that, even if it's just totally raw chocolate, it kind of kicks up the viral load that is already in my body. So I really have to be mindful and careful. I believe people have a first key indicator in their body that tells them. Everybody's got one, and most people don't know how to listen to their body. But my first key indicator is my glands start to get swollen. And that's my first key indicator that I'm running the engine of my body a little too hard, that I need to slow down, that I probably, for me, I need some more nourishing foods, and to just up my supplement game maybe a little bit. But everybody has this first key indicator. It's kind of like that first warning light on your car, or that first little sound on your car that you probably should take it into the shop and get it checked out, but you don't. You wait for the warning light to come on. And so, right? And so we all have these. Some people, it's their skin. A lot of people, they'll see little things pop up on their skin, or they'll feel it in their throat, or they'll have headaches, or whatever your first key indicator is. But to your point, you don't have to have the low vibration version of your life. And make no mistake, we have such an infinite bandwidth of what your life going to play out like. You have so many different timelines of your life that you can have an illness and go on the highest vibration version of that. And you can also go on the lowest vibration, just like you can get in a car accident and be on the highest vibration version of that, or you can be on the lowest vibration version of that. And so I just think it's one of those things that, boy, if you start tapping into how you're feeling and your body as an indicator, your body's your barometer. And are you feeling heavy or dense? Are you feeling something in your body? And then start to work with that. Your life can really be a lot different.
I like that. And yeah, I want the highest version. Now, you do some work with people. You've talked about sound healing and meditations, and how do you help people to actually increase their vibration and their frequency?
Yeah, so I love sound frequency because it is one of those things that it takes the mind out of it completely. The mind wants to make up stories and get things right and make things be wrong, where sound frequency just goes into the body and it sort of dislodges some of the density that's in the body. It dislodges, they're even using sound frequency sonic waves to kill cancer these days. So yeah, I know. So there's a lot of research on sound frequency. So I love using sound frequency with people because it's just one of those things that people will feel different after they're done. But I also do a lot with the mind and the emotional and physical body, where I have several courses like Reality by Divine Design, where, we help people look at, where am I not taking responsibility for my life? Where am I not taking responsibility for my vibration? Where can I up my game? Where can I really co-create this life that is something that my soul has always wanted, but I've been trained out of thinking in the mind that I can. So it's kind of a reprogramming the life. So yeah, sound is the big thing I use. And then I also use the body, because ultimately everything has to come through the body. Your body is the vehicle that your life experience comes through. So we have to then make sure that the body's aligned and tune everything in through the body. So we're always checking in with the body. How does that feel? Do you feel something in your stomach, for example, when you're thinking about, maybe going on this trip? Oh, does your stomach sink? So I start to teach people how to read their own body, how to read their own frequency, how to listen to their intuition. And when you know how to do that, life's just a lot easier. It just is more fun to live your life versus just kind of getting through your day, chugging along, ticking off tasks, and making dinner at night and going to sleep and waking up and doing that all over again.
And again, and again, and again. Yeah. Oh, it sounds amazing. Sounds so good. We're going to put the links to that in the show notes below. So if you're interested in that, please pop down there. There is a free meditation in there too. Is that right? Free meditation?
Yeah, so I'd love to give your audience, it's called Raise Your Vibration Toolkit. So it's all of these toolkits that I was given up there to bring down here, these little easy practices that, by the way, even little kids get. They listen to this and they're like, oh, I totally get this. So you can listen to these little daily practices. It raises your frequency and can really set the course for your day to be a lot different even. So the Raise Your Vibration Toolkit is just a fun, easy way to get started. It's totally free for you guys, and I'd love for you to check it out.
Oh, fabulous. So have a look down there in the show notes for that link, and highly recommend that. Alysa, thank you so much. You've shared so much with us. Like I said at the beginning, I find this very, very interesting because I'm very much into health and wellness, and I love to chat about all these things. Your experience was just, the way you shared it was just so beautiful. I'm still visually imagining. I do a lot of visual imagination in my head, and I've got the consciousness stretching and playing, and it just feels so fun. And often when I try and center myself, I feel like I'm actually not even connected to my body so much anymore. I am, but I'm not. And so when you were talking about that, I was like, oh, I feel that's like when I'm kind of floating around, but I'm still connected, but I can just have fun and play and spin around. And it's like being a little child. I love it. And I think we should always try and have fun. And if you listen to the podcast often, I talk about squeezing the juice out of life. And you said as well, Alyssa, that you're a bit of a goer and that you like to push boundaries and do things. And why not do that for the positive? Why not do that to have our highest vibration and to have all of this fun? And it doesn't necessarily come easy, and it doesn't come all the time. And there is work that's involved behind it. But yes, definitely one good place to start is with your resources. And Alysa, I'm just so grateful for you coming and sharing your story with us. So Alysa Rushton, thank you so much.
Oh, thanks so much, Kirsty, for having me. It's been a pleasure.